and welcome to our show. Here we are where spirit meets story, truth and mystery with your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. We are journeying together through the deeper meanings behind today's world events, ancient wisdom, and the quiet whispers of the divine. We're going to reflect, remember, and reconnect. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the family. Make sure to follow us and ring that bell, check those checks, and click on that link to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening from wherever you are in the world. This show isn't just a broadcast. It's a broadcast with intention, with spirit, and with love. Now, here is Douglas.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you again on the Soul Report Live. Tonight's topic, facing the giants, David, Goliath, and the giants of our time, is our topic tonight. More than large men, symbols of fear, power, and oppression are represented in the Bible by the existence of the giants. We all know the story of David and Goliath, and most people think this is about warfare. I think it's about courage. It's about faith. It's about standing up to bullies, and it's about confronting the giants in your life. And perhaps tonight, all of us, we might look and face down these giants. Not giants 9 feet tall carrying spears and shields, but giants nonetheless. When most people hear the word giant, they immediately think of Goliath. But did you know that there was 5 giants in the Bible? And the Bible speaks of a race or clan of giants known as, I'm going to hope I not screw up this word, but Rephaim or the Anakim. They were powerful warriors who walked in various regions of the Holy Land before and during the early history of Israel. To the ordinary people of that time, these real-life giants seemed invincible, much more like the problems we face today. But tonight's show is going to talk a little bit about the historical giants, but also how they relate today to the giants we face down every time. You know, Goliath of Gath was best known. He was a giant warrior. He was towering over most of the people of his time, and he terrified Israel, he and his cohorts, the other 4 giants. There is a story, for 40 days he challenged the Israeli army. Nobody moved. Nobody believed that they could defeat him until a young shepherd boy named David arrived on the scene. The giant's greatest weapon wasn't his size, it was fear. Goliath defeated most of the Israelis before the battle even began. Inside their minds, they were defeated. And so outwardly, they were defeated in any combat or resistance. That was the giant of fear. Goliath came from the Palestine city of Gath, one of the 5 major Palestine cities. According to the Bible, he stood over 9 feet tall. He wore armor that weighed over 100 pounds, and he carried a massive spear. For 40 days, he challenged the armies every morning, every evening, the same challenge for someone to come out and take him on. The same threat and the same intimidation was basically his weapon. It wasn't the spear or it wasn't his armor, it was the fear. Goliath convinced an entire army that they were already defeated. Today, fear comes through economic uncertainty, frightening news reports, threats from governments, social media, health concerns, social pressure. You see, the giant wants you to surrender before the battle even begins. So one of the first giants in life that are affecting us today is fear itself. The young shepherd boy picked up some smooth rocks out of a riverbank, and he went to battle to confront the giant Goliath. For those of you who don't know the story, it was David who later became King David, who was a young man. Out of all the armed soldiers, all the people ready to do battle, the trained professionals, It was out of all of them that he came forward and he asked that he go to confront the giant. And he was given permission. You see, the one thing that David wasn't giving into was fear. He already in his mind, through his faith or through something else, knew that he was going to slay this giant of a man. And he did so with a slingshot, the lowliest of the lowliest weapon anyone could have. And we hear this story and we know what a miraculous feat this young man did, stepping up in front of all these warriors on the battlefield, professional soldiers ready to kill each other, to do whatever they could by attrition to win the battle. And yet he stepped forward. And again, courage and not being afraid in his mind, was David's secret weapon, not the slingshot. The second giant in the Bible is named Ishbi-Benob. He was the giant of exhaustion. He was another great warrior who nearly killed King David later in life. David was rescued by one of his loyal companions. But the giant Ishbi-Benob was the giant of exhaustion. His name, Ishbi-Benob, tells us that David had grown older and tired from many battles, and this giant nearly killed him. Only the intervention of Bathsheba saved David's life, and Bathsheba was actually David's sister's son, who stood by with great faith his king and Uncle David, if you will, King David by better name. Even the strongest men among us become weary. Many listeners know exactly what that feels like. The giant isn't always fear. Sometimes it's just exhaustion. Exhaustion from caregiving, from financial stresses, from illness, from lengthy legal problems, and from internal family struggles. You see, even kings need help with these problems in some times or some periods of their life. The lesson here is humility. Allow others to help you. The third giant was the giant of persistence. That was called Saph or Saipan perhaps. Saipan was defeated by one of David's warriors, and we know little about him. But his appearance teaches something important. Defeating one giant does not end all the giants in your life. Remember, life is like that. You solve one problem, and another one arrives on your doorstep. You overcome debt, then health issues may appear. You solve a legal matter, and then family difficulties arise. The giant that wears you out, the giant of persistence, Safi or Sapan, it wears you out, it wears you down. So the victory is not in avoiding battles, the victory is becoming stronger with each battle that you engage in. These are the giants in your life that are displayed or talked about in the Bible that relate to the hardships and the defeat of those giants in the past, but also that they're here today, the point of this show. Another giant was called Saph. Not every giant is yours to defeat personally. You are out where others are called to fight battles. You must allow others to help you. This giant was defeated by one of David's warriors, as I just said a moment ago, but his appearance teaches us something important. You solve one problem at a time, and the family difficulties, the legal matters, or whatever, will go away. And victory is not in avoiding the battles, but these battles have made you stronger. The next would be Lashmi or Lakmi. He was a brother of Goliath, and he was defeated by Elhanan, You see, defeating one giant does not eliminate all the challenge, as I said. After Goliath fell, the giant from the same family emerged. Sometimes giants are inherited, as would be Lakmi. And pardon me if I'm mispronouncing these ones. So when giants are inherited, that means that the pattern in your family is repeated. In families, these issues, these lessons are passed down. You might say it's the family karma. The patterns are passed down like fear and bad habits, addictions, anger, and beliefs. Many people spend years overcoming emotional giants that begin generations earlier. You know, the sin of the father falls on the sin of the son, as they say. But not every giant is yours. Sometimes they're inherited. So when you're wondering what happened, how this came to you, why do you have this bad luck, so to speak, remember, you're standing up for your family. You're the strong one, and you're overcoming these giants. Right up to the final one here. This was a giant with 6 fingers and 6 toes. He's mentioned in 2 Samuel 21. Not much is known too about his name or where he came from, but he was a giant warrior described as having, again, 6 hands, 6 fingers on each hand, and 6 toes. What a sight that must have been. The strangest giant often appears to you, my friend, as the most frightening. Again, the strangest giant in your life often appears to be most frightening. The final giant mentions had 6 fingers on each hand and foot, but to ancient people this would have seemed frightening as it did today. However, these things that appear most strange or frightening often lose their power when confronted. So when giants grow larger in the imagination than they are in reality, this is their power over you. This is how they gain their control over you. Because already, listen to this, in your mind, you are defeated. So overcoming the giants in life nowadays, as the same back then, is that in your mind, to overcome that defeat, to give up before you start, or as the cliche says, they shot the airplane down before it got off the runway. These are lessons in life, that it comes to that moment when you're about to do something, and it comes to that moment when you either go or don't go. And that little voice inside your head comes up with all kinds of reasons why you shouldn't do it, go ahead, or attempt to achieve it. In other words, fear manifests within yourself. To successful people, they have learned not to pay attention to that little voice that puts doubt into your actions, into your thoughts, into your inventions, into your intentions to be wealthy or self-sufficient or successful. It will always be there. In part, it's a little bit imagination, a little bit logic, and a little bit of, let's say, experience, which we'd call wisdom. So you know if you're going to put your hand into a candle and touch the flame, it's going to hurt. So you don't do that again. That's the wisdom I'm talking about. However, don't let those things in your mind stop you or cause you to give up before you even start. Successful people get up to the threshold. This is now, the past is one step behind and the future is one step in front, and they take that step, that leap of faith. In other words, they defeat the giant that is within. The spiritual lesson is that most strange things or things that you're not familiar with are often frightening. And of course, you don't have any bearings, any wisdom on how to handle them at that moment in time. Many giants grow larger in your imagination than they are in reality. So remember, the giant of the six-fingered giant is the giant of intimidation. Don't allow yourself to be intimidated by anyone outwardly or by the mind internally. This helps you to understand that in life, these five giants that were spoken of in the Bible and in other, I'm going to say, organizations or religions, they are the same. They are there for all of us to overcome. And you know, when you do that, people admire you. People wonder, first of all, why are you crazy enough to go to do battle with giants outwardly, but inwardly, there is nothing more satisfying than rising to the occasion and feeling accomplishment that you've overcome that uncertainty. You've mastered the fear within and you have achieved. It happens to everybody. These five giants are here today in everybody's life as they were centuries ago. So let's recap. Let's bring this story into modern day times. The giants today are not flesh and blood. Perhaps they're just forces. Number one, the first giant is fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of change, and fear of the future. The giant number two is injustice, false accusations, court battles, tax disputes, bureaucratic pressure, being forced to defend yourself when you're innocent. This is the second giant that you are to slay or overcome, the giant of injustice. The third giant is debt and financial pressure. We all have bills, and then the collectors come knocking when we are a little tight with money. We have economic uncertainty, and we have the feeling that you may have the feeling that you're never going to get ahead. This is the third giant, the one that is limiting to you financially through debts and financial pressure. This one you have to slay by peace of mind and by being wise and careful with your assets. Remember, fortunes build nickel by nickel, dime by dime, dollar by dollar. The old cliche is take care of the nickels and dimes and the dollars will take care of themselves. This is a very important giant that you must slay, and the earlier you do this in your life, the better you will achieve and succeed in overcoming debt and financial pressure. The fourth giant, believe it or not, is propaganda and deception. One of the 10 Commandments is not to bear false witness. This doesn't mean in court. It means don't gossip. Don't spread rumors. Don't spread false narratives. Don't manipulate people by words and by, bullying. People speaking untruths are giving in to this fourth giant. It's easier to blame someone else. It's easier to spread a juicy gossip rumor than it is to face the truth. But by slaying the fourth giant of propaganda and deception, you rise up as an honorable person. You find it offensive when people lie and gossip, and you do something about it. You say to the person, where did you hear that rumor? Who told you that? How do you know that? Do you know that as a fact, a personal fact? And then you go to the person that the rumor is all about and you tell them. That will help them immensely because you see, one of the great, you can say, deceptions and that of the most harmful thing is that the people who are the focus of rumors and propaganda don't know that it's being said about them. So by slaying that fourth giant and not participating in propaganda, rumors, or gossip, you will achieve some honor, greatness, and peace of mind like you wouldn't believe. If people find out that when they tell you a rumor, you go and you tell the person the rumor's all about, and then you tell that person that who you received a rumor from or heard the rumor from, people will stop telling you rumors. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? You won't hear the, oh my gosh, did you hear about, look out, watch out? You won't hear this stuff. And as such, you'll have peace of mind. The fifth giant is the giant of violence and power. This giant is of war and terrorism, of making threats, and in our day and age, the possibility of nuclear weapons and the abuse of the power by the strong. I can tell you that might does not make it right. Every regime in my lifetime, and that I inherited from my parents in history, the Soviet Union, for instance, the situations in Vietnam, Pol Pot, the atrocities that were done in faraway places, the prejudice and the bias, the civil rights movement, the abuse of power by the strong doesn't last. It's one of the giants that will be slayed. It will in itself, whether it's a group of people, whether it's a single person with a mission like David was with Goliath, that giant will be slayed. Terrorism will turn upon itself. Threats will turn upon themselves. And remember, the rule is what you put out comes back. If you need to notice that some of the great terrorism fascists of our time, they suffered the very same torture, torment, and death that they were propagating. Every single one. Every single one then and every single one that is here now will follow in the same footsteps. They will, by their own hand, suffer, and they will be slain. Those are the 5 giants that we understand in the Bible and how we should look for ourselves to overcome them. Again, in summary, number 1 is fear, losing income, health, relationships, and losing security. This keeps us trapped. We have to fight this giant in our own way to get out of those situations of fear. Again, giant number 2 is injustice, false accusations, government mistakes, being misunderstood. This is where many listeners may connect deeply in overcoming injustice. Don't be part of it and don't allow it. And when it happens, remember, truth sometimes walks slowly, but it still arrives. There are 3 things that cannot be hidden. I say this occasionally to myself. The 3 things are truth, the sun, and the moon. They cannot be hidden. Remember, always the truth comes forward. Again, giant number 3, that can become a giant to you. People will, you might lose sleep, your marriage might suffer, hope weakens, and yet that is not identity. It's a circumstance, temporary, and circumstances change. So when you find yourself a little in the hole, you can say, well, that's why we have bankrupt trustees. That's why I can go make a deal and I'll have some sort of payment plan. Rather than wondering what can you do, you go to people and you ask for help. Remember, one of the giants is accepting help, not allowing yourself to feel hopelessness. And the 4th giant, again, recapping, is rumor and gossip. This giant is ancient. It's older than Goliath. People whisper. They spread stories, false narratives. The Bible repetitively warns against being false witness because words can wound. Words have power, but remember, what you speak out comes back. A lie travels quickly, truth travels further, and always a liar or a person that tells gossips will be found out and their life will be terrible. So don't give in to it. Stand firm, and when you hear people telling false narratives about you, don't justify it, don't argue with them, don't prove it. Just look them right in the eye and they'll back down because they can't stand the truth. And again, the 5th giant is abuse of power. History repeatedly shows us empires rise and rulers gain power, leaders overreach, and eventually all these giants fail. They fall. The Pharaoh fell. The Roman Empire fell. No giant stands forever. Remember that. Again, although it may seem like they do they do have an easy way out. I can tell you they don't sleep at night. They are so worried about all the people around them. They are so worried that somebody's going to take their power away that it causes them to have mental breakdowns. And you can see that in history, and you can see it today. You know, David's secret, he did not become a winner because he was stronger. He won because he believed. He trusted in the Almighty more than he feared any giant. And if you can find yourself in that same frame of mind to win because you are becoming stronger, the problems will diminish. They'll still be there, but you'll know what to do. Whether a problem old or new, you'll know what to do. David saw the same giant everyone else saw when he went on that battlefield. The difference was that David saw a greater power standing beside him. So the real secret of David is that many people think he won by a stone. He did not. The stone was merely the tool. David won long before he entered the battlefield. He had already conquered the giant fear. It's not easy to do, my friends, but if you look back, you can see what happened in the past so that you can see what to do in the future. Always, 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 the battle is not won on the outside before it is won on the inside. I'd like you to keep that in mind as we go to commercial now, and we'll be right back with more about other spiritual traditions, about how to defeat the giants of our life as they were in the past. We'll be right back after this short break.
Are you ready for the future? A future filled with challenges, changes, and opportunities? Discover the New Earth by Douglas James Cottrell, PhD, a groundbreaking guide to understanding the evolution of our planet. Learn how to prepare yourself and your loved ones for the unpredictable. With insights from the Akashic Records and quantum meditation, this book offers precise predictions and practical advice. Explore how geographic areas will be affected and become a co-creator in shaping the new era of our planet. Over 370 pages of essential knowledge. Secure your ultimate guide to the future. Order the New Earth today.
And welcome back, my friends. I hope you're enjoying this show. My website is douglasjamescottrell.com, and you may check out some of these books that are behind me on my website. And if you wouldn't mind going to my website and just sort of going through it, I would appreciate it. We've recently updated it, and I'd like you to sort of check and see if there's any glitches or mistakes. If there are, please email info@douglasjamescottrell.com. And if you find any, I'll send you one of these books, okay? I really will. So please have a look at my website and have a look at these books if you care to enjoy some of the wisdom I put forward in these books. I also want to announce that coming up this summer, I am putting together the Quantum Meditation Master Class. This is a really important work of my life. It's going to put forward all of the aspects so that you can become a very intuitive person, just like Edgar Casey or my mentor Ross Peterson or myself. It's the core opportunity: intuition, development, consciousness, spiritual awakening, and there's much that exists online that lacks there is much online that lacks depth, ethics, structure, and authentic mentorship. I've been doing this since 1974. So you can take advantage of the grounded spiritual training I'll be offering, practical development methods, moral spiritual responsibility, decades of my tested teaching methods. I will give you direct mentorship and be real experimental exercises. We're going to help to open the Kundalini. We're going to help you to open the pineal so that you can connect with those aspects above. It's the Quantum Meditation Masterclass, Awakening the Soul's Natural Abilities. And I'll be talking more about that in the upcoming shows, and they'll be posted on my website and social media in the next while. So we look forward to you participating in that if you want to, if you think you have the real stuff to do so, because it's a very difficult development of dealing with opening up yourself intuitively, finding out who you are, what past lives you may have experienced, but more importantly, to define what your spiritual abilities or gifts are. We will teach you all of them. There might be one or two. I don't teach speaking in tongues, so I got to cross that off the list. But I can help you understand all the aspects that happen to your mind when you sleep and when you're awake, and more importantly, when you're in a state of meditation. And now back to the show. As I said before, there are different spiritual traditions out there. In Buddhism, the Buddha taught hatred does not cease by hatred. It only stops by love. This is the giant that is often within ourselves: fear, anger, and attachment. We overcome all of these aspects by love. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." This giant is not the event. This giant, overcoming it, is your reaction to it. Mahatma Gandhi faced the British Empire with almost no material power. Yet he said, "Strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from the indomitable will." The will of one person is greater, as I was told by Ross Peterson, than all the bombs being placed that man has made, all the bombs being placed in one place. Your will is that powerful. You have to call on it, and we're going to talk more about the power of the will, because in the power of the will, you come to that same point I spoke about earlier, where you go or you don't go, and how you achieve the success of using your will. We'll discuss that at a later date. But remember, a small man standing before a giant like Goliath, David had the will of a giant, and his will prevailed. Bible prophecy at different times really repetitively teaches us the different times come and go in our lives. They do come, they will come, and you cannot avoid them no matter what you do. That's wisdom. You can't run away, because when you do, think about this, you run in a circle. The problem was put in front of you because it's a spiritual lesson. It's something to make you more powerful, to be spiritually stronger. Think about this. Psalm 23 is often quoted, and it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." This means you slay that giant of evil, of fear, the fear of evil. Notice it says, this verse, walk through. It doesn't say you stay there. You walk through this valley, down and up. Every valley has an exit. Remember, actually has two, one on each end and one straight ahead. So there's three ways to get out of any difficulty in your life. The valley of evil is not a monstrous, horrific, disfigured being. It's fear. The valley of fear is the valley without love. It's the valley that holds you back. You stand on the precipice and you say, "I don't want to go. I'm afraid." And yet, if you take a run at it, going down is real easy. And coming up is a little harder, but that momentum of running to your fear and going through it carries you over the edge on the other side. Remember, every valley has an exit. No fear, no situation in your life remains forever. It's only temporary. However, it might look as if this is the way your life is going to be forever, but that's a weakness in your mind. It's not true. As you go through life, you begin to see, yeah, I went through a bankruptcy, yeah, okay, my business didn't succeed, but the next idea, it's a wonderful idea, I'm going to give it a shot. And you put all your energy forward. You don't think about the failing or the fear of the previous loss of business. You think of the success and the accomplishment in the present business. That is how you slay the giant and you succeed in your life. You overcome that giant of fear. There are many things that we can do, myself, my friends, but that's why I'm here on the show, is to tell you there are always alternatives. No matter what, there is always an alternative. There is always an opportunity. There are always people in front of you that will help you. You just have to find them. I know, where am I going to find them? What am I going to do? Well, you start asking. You ask everybody. And finally, somewhere, somehow, along the line, somebody's going to come to you and say, hey, I hear you need a little help. It'll be a perfect stranger. Might not be. It could be somebody you know that doesn't know you're in trouble. But you start asking. That's the great prayer. Ask and ye shall receive. Yeah, it sounds good. But there's two conditions to that. You have to seek and you have to find or knock on doors. So when you seek, that means ask everybody, hey, can you help me? I need some help with my car. I haven't got any money, but could somebody help fix my car? I need it to go to work. You'll get turned down. People tell you're crazy. People say, who's going to help you for nothing? But I guarantee you there will be someone. They will show up and they will help you. And they'll be pleased to do it. You have to knock on the doors. And you have to go and actually knock on doors and ask for help. And when it comes, you answer the door. You don't become afraid or worried that you're going to be taken advantage of. Of course, you'd be wise about the situation. But when it comes, answer the door. And you will find that you will overcome this temporary time in your life. And you'll forget about it. At the moment you're going through the most terrible circumstance, one of those 5 giants is banging on your doors, challenging you to a duel or a fight. And in time, you won't even remember what that was all about. A decade later, you'll forget the circumstances. You'll only remember how you achieved success. With that, I want to turn to Advice from Amigo. Every week we have this new feature on the show, Advice from Amigo, and that is Advice from AI. So we put the question to Amigo tonight, that's my name for my AI friend, about these giants and what Amigo had to say. And so here's what Amigo wrote. Friends, everyone faces giants. Some are visible, some are invisible. Some stand before us, some live within us. The lesson of David is not that giants disappear. The lesson is that courage appears. Many people wait until they are no longer afraid before acting. But courage works differently. Courage acts while fear is still present. Remember, David did not exactly know how the battle would end. He simply knew that he had to step up. Perhaps that is the message for all of us. Take the next step. Speak the truth. Do the right thing. Trust that strength will arrive when needed. Because the giant before you may be large, but the spirit within you is larger. And that's the comment from my friend Amigo. I can tell you in my own life that when you go to do something, attempt not to tell people what you're going to do. Because when you do that, they will throw you the curve. And that spiritual curve is that they will dissuade you somehow, convince you that they're right and you're wrong. They will tell you that you're crazy. No one has ever done this before. Why are you attempting to do this? Envy will come forward if you tell people you're going to buy a new truck, or you're going to buy a house, or you're going to get some new clothes, or you're going to change the job at the factory and go into a higher paid, let's say, office work. Whatever you tell people that you're going to do, your plans, you will meet resistance. Guaranteed. Envy is a silent giant that you have to slay. And the way to do that is, as they say in Francais, fermez la bouche. Keep your mouth closed. Don't tell people your plans. After you achieve your plan, then you can tell them, but not before. And remember, if you do, and people know what you're doing, if you do tell people your plans, they know what you're doing, they will always throw a curve. They will always tell you it can't be done. I was told a story by my mentor, Ross Peterson, who said the famous Walt Disney had a theory, had a practice. He would come up with an idea, then he would go out and he would disguise it a little, and he would tell 10 people. If 9 of the 10 people thought it was a wonderful, great idea, he dropped it like a rock. If 9 of the 10 people thought it's impossible, it cannot be done, no one can accomplish this, he got on it right away. The idea is that when everybody thought it was a wonderful idea, it wasn't so great. And so when he achieved the idea, if everybody said it couldn't be done, that was a great idea. I've heard in listening to Walt Disney's biography and the stories, that was part of his creative force. It made him great because he accomplished what other people thought was impossible to achieve. So before we go to the chat and we get Oz to come on here and take your questions, we can talk more about this subject. I want you to remember this story about David and Goliath has survived for more than 3,000 years. Because every generation has had its giants. Every generation has had its bullies. Every generation has had its Goliaths. But every generation has also had its Davids. Ordinary people like you and I. People who believe. People of faith. People who are courageous. People who refuse to surrender their principles. And perhaps tonight, somewhere in our audience, somewhere is facing a giant right now. A giant of fear. A giant of injustice. A giant of uncertainty. Please remember this. David did not ask whether the giant was too big to hit. He realized that the giant was too big to miss. And with faith and courage and perseverance, your giants will fall as did Goliath. I'm going to welcome Oz back to the show. Jack, have we got some people who maybe have comments or questions about what's going on here with giants in our lives?
Yes, we do. We have a few questions. There was one that came up, I was looking into this, about, the 5 smooth stones that were thrown. Would that, maybe correlate with 5 core virtues, or what practices today could we do to help us get through any of our giants, get over our giants?
Well, again, depending on the story, Uh, Remember, it only took one stone to knock down Goliath. But again, I would extrapolate from that and say yes, uh, the five stones were for the five brothers, the five giants. Rather than they were virtues, they were to slay the five giants that we mentioned already that were in our lives. And as we understand, the first giant was fear. That would be one stone. The second, injustice, a second stone. The third would be the giant of debt and financial pressures or fears. The fourth stone would be the one to conquer propaganda, lies, rumors, and gossip and deception. And the fifth would be to overcome violence and power through war and terrorism and threats. That these are what we're facing today. And so I would look at those five stones and say they could be, depending on the interpretation of the story now, they could relate to other things. But for tonight's show, this is the ammunition to kill off the five giants that are plaguing us today, as did the relatives of Goliath and his friends, including that six-fingered, six-toed uh, giant that everybody was afraid of because he was unknown. Think about this. More people are afraid of the unknown than they are of what they know. And so it holds you back. I'm the kind of guy who likes to jump in with both feet and figure it out on the way. Some people call that silly or foolish. But when you jump into that room and it's all dark, first thing you do is you look for a light switch. You don't become afraid and run out of the room. How's that?
Very good. Here's a question from This Too Shall Pass on YouTube. He's asking about some women like a man in uniform because is that because, in a past life they liked a soldier, or is it because they like it because it's fashionable?
Well, it could be those and a lot more. People wearing uniforms are perfectly dressed. They are conforming to the way everybody else is dressed. And of course, these people in uniform have gone through training that makes them look their very best. So, why people like people in uniforms? Perhaps they feel protected. Perhaps they're proud of their sons or daughters wearing uniform. But I can tell you, I've gone through airports and in other countries, and I've seen people in the officers in immigration, and it, every hair on their head is in place. The buttons are polished. They look fantastic. And so I think there's a subliminal admiration here, is that the people that we see in uniform are so perfectly dressed have spent so much time on looking good, behaving themselves. They're disciplined, they're attractive, they're strong. Guess what? That sort of sounds like they've conquered all those giants that we're talking about tonight. So I can't be specific about why people like people in uniform. There's a downside to the being in uniform. That means you've been trained to be a soldier, a sailor, or an airman, and that means you're ready and willing to put your life on the line and or to take life. So the long and the short of it is, people in uniform are defending our country. They are looking good. They have a life of discipline, and maybe, just maybe, we're a little envious of how these people have put themselves together. I certainly am when I see people well dressed. I love to see soldiers marching, especially when it's coordinated and very well done. It's just fascinating to watch. Is that part of our human nature that we have witnessed over the years and lifetimes? Battles, groups of soldiers defending our country, our village, our nation? Could be. But I can't be specific. These things I'm saying to you are just rolling out of my mind now as I'm talking. But of course, there's a saying where, women love men in a uniform. Well, so do men love women in uniform, especially if they outrank them. Okay. That comes from a real story. I've known women of rank who've had younger boyfriends, but it had husbands. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the next question is a little bit about your book, The Secret Life of Jesus Christ. And the question is about Jesus being circumcised and that isn't related anywhere. What are your thoughts on that? Was Jesus
It says very plainly, uh, he grew up in a Jewish family. He followed the traditions of the family. He followed the traditions of Moses. So naturally, as it was a decree by Moses, the lawgiver, that all Jewish men would be circumcised, that he would have been done so. He would have had a bar mitzvah. He was assigned a trade with his father to be a carpenter. All of his life, he was within a family of Jewish people, and he obeyed the Jewish principles, laws, and understood the Jewish spiritual books or Bible, if I can call it the Old Testament or Torah. And he was challenged on those things when he was a youngster. There's a story about the wise men when his mother and father were in transit. Uh, he was back at the temple talking to them and teaching them as a youngster, to the point that when his mom and dad, Mary and Joseph, forgot about him, they had to go back and they found him, I guess, teaching the rabbis in the temple. So he had this awareness, he had this connection even as a child naturally. His whole life was predicted for that the Messiah was coming. And when he arrived, he naturally was spiritually, I'm going to say, endowed with great wisdom. But as it said, he followed the traditions of his religion, and he encouraged people to do that. He didn't come to start a whole new religion. He didn't come as a Christian. He came as a Jewish man or a Jewish boy, then a man in a Jewish family, and that was his destiny. And as such, to answer the question, was he circumcised? Yes. Did he restrict his diet as Moses had dictated? Yes. Was he a good boy and did what his mommy and daddy asked? Yes. But he was special. And he never abused his power. Remember, the first miracle in the Bible that's recorded is that there was a wedding in the family, and the host of the wedding ran out of wine before the party was over. So his mother prevailed upon her son, who would be called something different than Jesus. Remember, his name was Emmanuel. The angel gave him that name. And so Emmanuel was called, maybe at that time he was also called Little Joseph or something, but his mother prevailed upon him to do his thing. And he warned his mother. He said, "Mom, my time has not yet come," meaning I'm still a boy. I have my mission and it's not my time. But Mummy prevailed upon her son to do this miracle, which he complied. And in a way, that sort of prematurely showed everybody in the neighborhood that, hey, look at Emmanuel has special abilities. Okay, I'm making a little bit of a humorous remark there because at the time it would be a party. And as we know, Jesus not only produced wine from water, he produced the best. If you remember, the host even was commented upon when somebody said, listen, mostly at parties, you save the worst wine to the last and you feed it to the people who are a little tipsy. But you, my friend, save the best till last. That means that the miracle of water being into wine was absolutely the best. So, moving forward or answering the question, that's a long about way, but to give you a snapshot, it's in my book about Christ, the hidden mysteries of Christ. And I encourage people to go to my website, douglasjamescottrell.com, and read it. It's a book of revelation, and you won't find anything that's offensive, but it may give you a new look on some of the lives and times of the Christ. Okay?
all right? From the Lone Ranger, He said he notices that he always has a small portion of food left on his plate after eating. He's wondering, where would that come from?
It comes from an ancient teachings of some religions, which is basically you leave a little food or crumbs on your plate or on the table for the angels.
Oh,
I do the same. I always wondered why I would eat a sandwich and I'd always have a little crust and I would leave it. Always bothered me why I did that. But I found out from a lady in New York City who's a VIP corporate owner of a large La Perfume kind of business, and she told me that. So always leave a little crumbs or food for the angels on the side of your plate or the table. I never forgot it, and I still do. Perhaps this is what the Lone Ranger is talking about.
yeah, very good. From Mario, he's wondering about World War III and when that's going to happen. How many people, he says, many people like myself can take proper measurements to have a better chance to survive. So please tell us, when is the war going to be?
This book right here, The New Earth, talks all about it. Go get the book. I have a couple of boxes left. Very popular book, full of prophecies, and many, many of them have already come true. I remember when I wrote the book, I took some criticism about what was coming in the future, and here we are living the prophecies that were in that book. It's called The New Earth. World War III is here. Nostradamus was quoted as saying, in the future, people were walking slowly towards World War III, and he couldn't figure that out. He didn't call it World War III, maybe he did, I don't know, but he called it a world war. I know that. And we are walking very slowly, are we not? Look at all the things that are going on in the world. There is going to be more retaliation to some of the things that are going on. In America, if you look all around us, the cartels in Mexico are angry with what happened to them. The Venezuelan people are angry with what happened to them. The Cuban people are really angry. They're being starved and abused, if you will, economically. They're angry. In the country, we have people who, the fascists in America, are now rising up. If you're wondering where all these groups are coming together that have this hatred, these are the fascist groups that have always been here in America for the last 100 years, and they've all now are rallying around one leader or one flag. And that's why we're going to find difficulties in the country. We look at the Middle East, what's going on with Iran now attacking several of the Arab countries all around, from Saudi Arabia to, anyway, I won't name them all. And we have Lebanon. This will be the third time that Netanyahu has attempted to eliminate Lebanon. Never mind the politics as to why. Look what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, where now we have the Russian firing a ballistic missile, the most powerful missile, into the center of Kiev. We've had near misses on of nuclear power plants, one in Kiev not too long ago, a couple years ago, and one recently in the Middle East. So look what's going on. All we need is one explosion and then, oh my God. So we also are not paying attention, and you'll find more about this in my book, to weather patterns and volcanic disruptions. This is the real problem. When there's ash, volcanic ash in the air or the atmosphere, the planes don't fly. The trucks don't roll on the highways. So more about that in my book. I'm not trying to be self-serving here, just more in it. We only have a few minutes left in the show. World War III, how to prepare. I've been talking about this. Jack and I have on shows. I've been on the Global Village and the Wake Up talking about buy silver. Silver was $7. Buy gold. I predicted on the internet that it's going to go to 3,500. Well, it's gone to 5,000 and it's floating around 4,500 right now. You should have 6 to 8 to 18 months of food in your basement, or being able to grow potatoes in bags on your balcony. Enough for a few months at least. It's not hard to be prepared for anything other than think about, okay, what happens if I couldn't go to the grocery store? I've predicted this on the show, that the cloud is going to be locked up for a while. Oh my God, what about our finances? We can't access them. The most important giant that we can overcome right now is debt. Debt. If you have credit cards and you're carrying a balance on them month to month, you are enslaved. You are enslaved. You've given up your freedom. Do the best you can to get out of debt practically. Not a panic, but do the best you can, even if you have to work 2 jobs or a part-time job on top of your regular job. Be thrifty. Remember, don't hire somebody to do something that you can do yourself. Save, save, save. Can you get by on 50% of your income? Maybe, some people can. Can you get by on 75% of your income? Probably. You might have to make a few sacrifices, like you make the pizza rather than buy the pizza for $30. You go and you get the ingredients for $5. I'm making it up. I don't need any emails to tell me that you can't make a pizza for $5. Maybe you can't. But if you're thrifty and you really want to put yourself in safety, get out of that. Then have a place where you can grow vegetables. Seeds are going to be very valuable in the future, because when situations stop and things don't grow, people are going to need seeds to start all over again. Now, I'm not trying to be a dark force here, but I wrote about this years ago, and I have continued to write about it. Buy my book, The New Earth, and see what it's all about. As we continue to move forward, though, you don't have to be a genius. No debt. You're saving 18% or 25% of your money per year by having no credit card debt. That's a fortune. It's not easy to get out of debt because you have to change your habits, but you can. And don't forget to give to charity, because as you're giving to charity, even when things are tight, I'm not talking about giving somebody money that they can take care of charity. I'm talking about you taking the initiative to give to a charity, to give to people for a good cause, whatever it might be, a charitable cause, or even help people on the street yourself. You remove the blocks for prosperity to come to you. Because when you don't give to charity, you think, oh my God, I can't afford it. Block number 1. Well, they're just going to take the money and waste it. Block number 2. You don't know that. How much should I give? 10%? 5%? You give what's needed. And you'll find that the doors will open to your own prosperity. You'll be removing the blocks. Whenever somebody comes up to you and puts their hand out, you're obligated as a spiritually aware person to put a coin in their hand. How much you put in their hand, that's up to you. I would encourage you to put $2 or $5 or $10 or whatever you think that person needs. Go buy them a dinner, buy them a jacket. That's how to get prosperity coming to you. Think about that. It's removing the blocks from your own prosperity by helping people who are in need. Anyway, not to get off too far because we're almost out of time on the show, but to be prepared today. Buy some cans, put them in the pantry. Buy some coins, 1 or 2 at a time. See, you don't have to buy big, but if you buy little, step by step by step, you'll be wealthy. Think of it this way. When you were 21, if you had bought 1 share of Costco. Okay, per month. When it was $30 a share, whatever it was, it's $1,000 a share now. Now you have to find out how to do that. You have to open an account. You have to actually spend the money on a stock. Gold stocks are doing okay. Copper stocks are doing okay. And on it goes. But that's up to you. I am not a financial advisor. Please don't take my advice as financial information. It's not. It's only offered for informational value. All right, my friends, any more questions? Last one, or we want everybody to come right back here next week? We might be changing the show. Oz and I are talking about a Friday night show. Let us know what you think about that. If you're on the West Coast, you'd like us to do a later show, I'm sure. But we're here for you right now, and you can see repeat of this show on YouTube and other social media. And I would, if I may ask, please subscribe to our channel and encourage your friends to subscribe to our channel, because it helps us get more places, get out there and spread the word, so to speak. And so you're helping us spread the word. If you like what I have to say, if you like what Jack and I are doing, we would appreciate you subscribing and liking us and doing all those things that help us gain some presence on social media. Jack. Do we have another question from the...
Let's see here. I think we might have another question. This is a Canadian question. Canada's doing a census this year. What are the pros and cons of governments doing this?
Wow. Think of that, a government knowing how many people are in its country. They do it all the time. I know there might be people saying, like, is it another way of controlling the population? Could be. I think it's just, if you want me to look at an academic perspective, the farmers need to know how many people are in the country so they know how much food to produce. The food boards, egg, cheese, whatever, milk, they set their quotas depending on the people. School boards need to know how many children are going to be here next year. All these different things where people, us, can go back to the government and say, I'm in the wine business. I want to know how many people live in Ontario, in the Niagara region, where wine country. We have the best wines in the country. I don't want to say this is a personal, because I live nearby, but we have the best wines we could possibly produce in the Niagara Escarpment. Now there are wines in different parts of the country as well, so the winemakers would need to know how many people, what the population would be. If somebody goes to open up a new Costco store, they need to know where the density of the population is within a certain geographical location, within a certain, which city has more people, that kind of. That's how Walmart was started. Mr. Wally and his wife Martha, they would choose where they were going to place their Walmarts by the population in certain towns and villages. Okay, so it would tell us, a lot of information that the markets, the people who are in business, would need to take the risk of establishing a business. Think about this, my friends. We see somebody has a business, they're doing well. We don't understand it. In the beginning, they had to choose where they were going to build this building. They had to organize all the aspects of getting stock, hiring people, opening the doors, and hoping people came in and bought their product. Big risk. So census tends to reduce the risk. I'm just rambling along here now, trying to give you some practical aspects about it. The pros would be for information that any one of us can gather and use for our own purposes. The negative side is that, yet again, governments got more information about us, and they know a lot more about us. I don't think I don't think there's much that we could say would be secretive these days. Everybody's videotaped or through security means 7, 8, 10 times a day. You're picked up on cameras, facial recognition has you logged in. And so if a census was keeping that kind of information on us, I don't think we could do anything about it. And I can't think of one reason right now off the top of my head as to why a census would be adverse or negative. It can only help the country move resources around, make plans as to where cities can expand, and all the needs of the population, I think, that would be legitimately put forward by governments to govern us, not to rule us, but to govern us. I hope that's satisfactory. Okay, so unless we have another question, we're almost out of time. Okay, Jack, I think we'll, if there's no more questions, we'll end the show now. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank Jack for co-producing the show with me tonight. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. And remember, the reason the story of the giants survived 3,000 years is because every generation has its bullies, and every generation has its Goliaths. But every generation also has its Davids, you and me. We are ordinary people. We are faithful people. And we are courageous people. And we refuse to surrender our principles. And that's what makes us spiritually practical in our lives. So perhaps tonight, somewhere out there in the audience, I've said this earlier, someone is facing a giant of fear, of injustice, of uncertainty, of persecution, of want, of depression, of feeling unloved. But remember, with a stone, this can be an idea, a purpose, a decision. You can attack that giant. Small steps lead into big accomplishments. Remember, David did not ask her whether the giant was too big. He said he was too big to miss. And so your life can be the same, my friends. The giant was too big to miss. These situations come into your life. The bigger and the harder and more challenging they are, I assure you, these are the giant steps you're taking toward your spiritual illumination. And with your willpower, remember, willpower is that power that is so great it can overcome anything. Willpower does not quit. It does not give in. Willpower continues till the very end. Success. It's a pleasure to have you on tonight. Look forward to having you visit my website, douglasjamescottrell.com, and perhaps pick up The New Earth or the other books that I have there, and also to keep in touch as we move forward with this master class, the quantum meditation master class, based on the other classes I put forward in the past, in which we have several students who are out there on the internet now practicing their spiritual abilities. And you too might be the next Edgar Casey or Ross Peterson or Douglas. Until then, until next time, may you enjoy all aspects of God, health, wealth, and peace of mind. Wishing you peace and prosperity. Good night and good luck.